When you carry out experiments in the science laboratory, it's important that you choose the correct measuring apparatus. In this chapter, we'll be looking at a variety of equipment and looking at how to use them properly to ensure your measurements are accurate.
You use a thermometer to measure temperature. In a school laboratory, you'll use a simple alcohol thermometer, which has a range of around -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. These thermometers are the most useful for measuring the temperatures of liquids. You place the bulb into the liquid and wait until the level of the alcohol stops rising, and then read the temperature off the scale. When using a thermometer, it's important that you hold the bulb in the liquid and not let it rest on the bottom of the container. This ensures that it's the temperature of the liquid that's being measured and not the container.
To measure time, you use a stop clock or timer which measures in seconds and also possibly milliseconds. It's preferable to use a digital stop clock when measuring time rather than an analog clock, as they give more accurate measurements. Also, when carrying out an experiment where you have to measure time, it's useful to work with a partner because one person can do the experiment whilst the other starts and stops the stop clock.
In the science laboratory, scales, called balances, are used to measure mass. They have a higher resolution than normal kitchen scales. A top pan balance can measure mass to the nearest 0.01 gram, while an analytical balance, which is the sort with a case around the weighing platform, can measure mass to the nearest milligram. These balances allow you to measure masses more accurately. Remember not to get the terms mass and weight confused. Weight is a force measured in newtons.
Before you use a balance, make sure it reads 0 when nothing's on it. Neglecting to do this will result in a 0 error in your results. To measure out a certain mass of a chemical, you can add a container or a piece of filter paper to the balance and then press the 0 or tare button. This will change the mass back to 0, ready for you to measure out your chemical.
When you need to measure the volume of a liquid, you have a choice of apparatus to use, depending on the volume you need to measure and how accurate it has to be. Measuring cylinders are a good choice if the volume you need to measure is above 25 cubic centimeters. They come in different sizes, so always choose the smallest one possible to increase accuracy. They're sometimes called graduated cylinders. Graduated means that there are markings up the side which are used to measure the volume. Even though beakers have markings on the side, never use these to measure the volume of a liquid. The measurement will not be accurate.
For smaller volumes and when accuracy is important, you should use a glass pipette, not a disposable plastic one. A volumetric pipette can only measure one particular volume. A graduated pipette can be used to measure a range of volumes. To fill the pipette, use a pipette filler. The liquid is sucked up the pipette until it reaches the desired line. Scientists used to use their mouths to suck up the liquid, but this method is no longer used because it's not really very safe. In science laboratories outside schools, scientists use automatic pipettes, which use disposable tips. They're quicker to use and prevent cross-contamination because they don't need to be cleaned when swapping between different liquids.
Burettes are long, graduated glass tubes with a tap at one end. When you carry out a titration, you fill the burette with acid and place the alkali and indicator into a conical flask which sits under the burette. The acid is added to the alkali a drop at a time until the alkali is neutralized. The volume of acid used is then read off the side of the burette. Whether you use a measuring cylinder, pipette, or burette, you should always take the volume reading from the bottom of the curved surface of the liquid, called the meniscus. So, to summarize, to get accurate measurements, make sure you select the correct piece of measuring equipment: a thermometer to measure temperature, a stop clock to measure time, balances to measure mass, and a measuring cylinder, pipette, or burette to measure volume.